This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA for mature audiences. It may contain sexual references, time travel references, allegations of bin misconduct, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that this episode is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15 or anyone who thinks a comedy conversation between two old mates sounds like a terrible idea for a show. Minors must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. This is John Deek speaking.
Everyone relax, this is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson. Hello and thank you for watching. I realise I'm actually using my Everyone Relax mug that is available at Redbubble. People can buy one of those.
I'm wearing my Until We Die t-shirt, so just a good bit of merch plugging there before we start the show. I just had a mouthful of peanut butter.
What? Yeah, I was going to ask what it was, like literally the worst thing that you could eat just before you were about to. Yes, I do. Of course I want to know. This is exactly what I want to know. What weird concoction, what sort of nutritional paste are you subsiding on at the moment?
So it's, look.
Soylent Green is people.
It all ties in together. You know, we sort of mentioned last week that we're bulk recording a whole bunch of episodes because you're getting ready to do Question Everything, and I'm heading overseas for about 6 weeks. And part of my trip is for work, but part of my trip is also a holiday and to see Jem's family over in the UK. And so, knowing that I was going to be heading over to UK and Europe, I was like, I need to get into shape before I go and hit those European restaurants and stuff like that.
I see what you're saying, because I thought you were like so that you can show those Europeans what real Australians look like. Fucking manly men.
No. It's more I'm detoxing in order to retox. Yeah, okay. But I also I stepped on the scales a few months back and was like, holy shit, like I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and not like. You know, it wasn't
part of that. Isn't that part of that's kind of because you're muscly, right? Like,
no. Part of that is because when you have a child in the house, you and you don't have a dog, you become the dog. So whenever there is leftover
you're
food,
the dog now,
I'm the
Charlie.
Dog.
In our house, you're now the dog.
Yeah.
Gemma is the parent. You're the dog now.
I am the dog now.
Be great if you had a dog and you just looked the dog in the face and just said, "I am the dog now."
I'm the dog now. Because if there's anything left over, and even this morning, like it was like I made this delicious a buttered toast with honey, and she only took like a couple bites, and I was like, oh my god, that's some delicious buttered toast. So I scoffed that down.
Is it white toast, brown toast, gluten-free toast, healthy toast?
Yeah,
or is it
Gem is gluten-free, so we have gluten-free bread in the house. Gluten-free paleo. It's really good actually. It's just from my local supermarket.
Is it?
It is actually. I mean, I do not like gluten-free as a rule, but this is the best of gluten. I mean, look, it's good gluten-free, so make of that what you will. Yeah. Make of that what you will. But yeah, so I'm always eating Iona stuff and consuming things, and also just like pandemic and fucking floods and shit, and it's been a lot of stress. It's been a lot of stuff going on, and I felt like I needed to turn things around. And I like exercise; it makes me feel good. Jem got me a bike for my birthday, so we talked about that last week. And then I was like, well, if I'm exercising again, let's eat better. So you're asking what I've been eating? Well, I just completed my first 4 weeks of this is what my day consists of. So it's about my sweet almond. I love my sweet almond eggs, which is scrambled eggs with brown rice flakes, almond butter, and blueberries on top. Delicious. I could eat that every meal.
Is it? Is it delicious?
And then my morning, and then what?
Tell me what's in that again. Run me through the ingredients. You've got eggs.
So I get like egg whites. So mainly egg whites. I'll crack 2 eggs in there. Okay. So maybe say I don't know,
what's happening to the yolks? Where are the yolks going?
So it's like scrambling. So I'll scramble 2 whole eggs with 6 egg whites. I'll scramble
So where are the extra yolks? What's happening to those extra yolks?
You can buy egg whites on their own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
But if not,
whites only. That's what you're saying. No yellow. That's your real Charlie's One Nation now.
So I get my whites only together and a couple of those yellow.
Flour,
Look at those yellow bastards.
Egg whites.
get them in, and then I beat the yellow bastards just until they blend in with the whites. I mix them all together. So it's like scrambled, and then you can get brown rice flakes. They look like little hard rice chips. You can get them from any health food store, or you can use oats. Soak them in the eggs for about a minute till they get soft, and then you scramble all of it together. So basically, you're getting your protein from the eggs, you're getting your carbs, complex carbs from the brown rice flakes, and then you get a nice scoop of almond butter, and so you put that and mix while the eggs are still hot, and so it melts and covers all the eggs. So it's like a sweet, nutty flavor, and then you put cinnamon on top of that, and then you drop some fresh blueberries on top, and delicious. It's like a sweet almond eggs. How do you feel about that?
You know what you've basically made?
What?
A cake. Like they're all the ingredients of a cake. You've essentially made yourself a cake for breakfast.
A very eggy cake.
A very eggy cake, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my first meal. Then I have, the last meal was a lot of because the first 4 weeks, it's about bulking. You're kind of like eating huge amounts. A lot of carbs, like complex carbs, like sweet potato, pumpkin, broccoli, that kind of stuff. And then this week you cut down your calories, and so you're getting to a more leaner kind of look. So hopefully you've built up your muscles and you've cut a lot of fat, and then now this is all about just like tightening up and increasing your cardio and stuff. So for breakfast, sweet almond eggs. I'm eating grilled asparagus with seared kangaroo and a dollop of peanut butter. So it's like a satay, just like a kangaroo satay with asparagus.
Yeah.
And then once we're done podcasting, I'll have a chicken salad with grilled sweet potato, lettuce leaves, and avocado with a nice balsamic dressing. And then for arvo tea, I will have it's meant to be fish, but I'll swap it out for turkey mince with brown rice and broccolini, and I make a nice little sriracha.
Mr. Broccolini, Mr. Bob Broccolini?
Mr. Bob Broccolini, which I don't know. Can I ask you about broccolini? Because I love broccolini.
Yeah.
But when you prep it, do you peel off those little leaves? Like, do you strip it right down so it's just the stem and the bushy head?
Yeah, I normally remove the leaves. You don't need to, though. Like, they're edible.
I know, but there's something about it. But it's such a pain in the ass to go through, especially when you've got a bunch of pots and pans going and, you're sort of cooking a big, because I cook in bulk for me and Jen. And to peel off those little goddamn leaves, and also the environmental catastrophe of the amount of rubber bands. Like each broccolini comes with 2 rubber bands. By the end of it, I've got like this little ball of rubber bands. I'm like, can we find another solution that isn't the rubber bands to keep these together?
I agree with that. And also, like, if I'm cooking broccolini, so normally what I would do is I would parboil it or whatever you call it, where you just put hot water on it. So you just put it in a bowl, you pour some hot water out of the kettle on it, and then you just lightly
grill it or whatever.
Fry it or whatever, or grill it or whatever it is that you're going to do to it.
You blanch it.
That's right. Yeah. You blanch it, and then and that seems to work. It's Australian broccolini. Did you know that? They don't have broccoli. It's an Australian.
I thought it was Italian.
I believe
Broccolini. It sounds like it should be Italian. Don't they own the rights to James Bond, the Broccolini family?
It's only called broccolini if it's from the broccolini area of Italy. So when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, broccolini. Let me hear let's try to find broccolini, Wikipedia. Here we go. Broccolini, or baby broccoli.
While you do that, I'm going to eat one of my asparagus stems. Go.
Yeah, okay. Sweet baby broccoli is a green vegetable similar to broccoli, but with smaller florets and longer, thinner stalks.
Okay.
It's a hybrid. Did you know this?
It's a mutant.
It's a mutant. It's a hybrid of broccoli and gailan, which is like Chinese kale or Chinese broccoli. So,
mate, you know how I feel about that. I don't like none of that Chinese broccoli, mate. Australian only broccoli.
Well, you know what? I've made a mistake too, because it is not. That was actually question everything, guys. That was completely wrong. What I said.
This is all just a promotional tool for your TV show.
Exactly. So it was actually developed by which nation? Which nation looked at Chinese kale and broccoli and thought, you know what, we can make a beautiful baby out of these two things? What nation do you believe had that imagination?
Neighbours of either China or no?
Oh. It's an Asian country.
An Asian country?
I'll give you, yeah.
I don't know. Was it
known for its innovation?
Japan.
Yeah, Japan. So broccolini was originally developed over 8 years. See, they stuck at it. They had a dream by the Sakata Seed Company.
Oh, I know Sakata.
Of Yokohama. I assume they're the same people who make the snack foods, the Sakata, the rice crackers and stuff that you can buy.
Sakata.
So the Sakata was developed as a hybrid of broccoli and Chinese broccoli rather than being genetically modified. So, yeah, it's not genetically modified. They got a broccoli to fuck a Chinese broccoli. Like, come on, guys.
I can see the scientist in the lab just with the Chinese broccoli and the broccoli and just like, come on, kiss, damn it. Why isn't this working?
8 years. 8 years it took. Sakata partnered with Sanbon Incorporated in 1994 to begin growing the product commercially in Mexico under the name, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
So what name was broccolini called in Mexico? Now, you'd never guess it.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to give you.
Is it L something? L Brocca?
No. So I'm going to say that it's not inspiration, but it's
perspiration.
Close. So yes, you're guessing in the right way. The last bit is piration.
Okay.
Right? So all you need is the first couple of letters.
Unspiration, herbspiration, oospiration, espiration.
Right. These are all good guesses and make as much sense as aspiration, which is what it was.
Okay.
Aspiration.
Okay.
Implying a similarity to
Sounds
asparagus.
Sounds like a celebrity cologne, doesn't it? Like, Will Anderson's aspiration. Aspiration.
Do you like broccoli and Chinese broccoli?
Aspiration. Smell like the greenest of the green. Well,
you know what it takes.
I mean, Will does smell like the greenest of the green, but it ain't broccoli.
You know what it takes to get a broccoli to fuck a Chinese broccoli? Aspiration. So, no, apparently it was meant to make people, because it looks a bit like asparagus. So the aspiration was meant to, it's maybe like a type of asparagus.
Right, that makes sense.
After first becoming available in US markets in 1996, in 1998, Sakata began a partnership with the Mann Packing Company in America and marketed the product as broccolini.
Right.
So it only became broccolini in 96 in America.
Huh.
So there you go.
Yeah, right. That is interesting. Yeah, well, broccoli and broccolini is the cornerstone of my healthy eating. It is the number one vegetable that I will consume multiple times a day. Broccoli is wonderful. It has full of fiber, full of vitamins and minerals as well. And then the last thing I'll have, Will, is a bit of grilled fish with some salad. That's my dinner. And there are like little bits and snacks you can have here and there, like bananas and little
one
bits
box
of fruit.
of Krispy Kreme donuts.
Well, you know what I did? There was a school fete up the road from us yesterday. It was a Hogwarts themed fundraiser for a primary school that we took Iona to, which I got to say was unreal. Like they had, I'm not really a Harry Potter fan. I don't know much about it. If anyone's heard Podcast Mike's podcast, Harry Potter and the Boys, I've guested on that, and I clearly know nothing about the Potterverse. But they did such a great job. Like everyone dressed up. They had like a Harry Potter maze. They had like a dine and alley or whatever it's called, where you could like win prizes and stuff. Iona had a ball. But one thing they have
also the great thing about this local area is there's a lot of people who already look like wizards.
Yeah, totally.
So they probably just rounded up some locals and said, if you can just wander around, no, just bring your own clothes. Yeah. Just wander around, and we'll say you're like, oh yeah, that's a grumble griff.
It was the best fancy dress parade you've ever seen in your life. Like it's like, wow, these kids have gone all out. And I just raided their parents' wardrobe. But there was they had a mock great hall where they were selling all their treats, and it was your typical kind of school fete treats. And so I got Iona a cupcake, and I was like, all right, well, I'm having a cheap meal. If The Rock can have one, I can have one. And so they had these amazing homemade mint slices, where it's like biscuit bottom with the kind of mint choc topping, like melted mint chocolate topping, and a homemade cherry ripe slice. So mashed up cherries and coconut with dark chocolate. So I got, and I'd say they weren't huge, like credit card sized each, probably about, a centimetre thick. And I ate both of them in quick succession, and then
sounds good.
Fucking felt so crook for the next 2 hours. Like, I guess if you're tuning up a sports car and then suddenly you dump a fucking ton of sugar into the gas tank, maybe the engine's going to fuck up a bit. Because I just was like, when you haven't had sugar, like pure sugar for a while, it affects you like having any drug, like having a line of Coke or smoking a joint or something. Like, you get a hit, which feels great, and then you feel a bit queasy afterwards, and you're like, I either need more of that to take the edge off, or I just can never go back to that again.
Well, it's why you always carry a tiny bag of sugar around with you in your coat pocket, right? Just in case.
That's right. When I go to the casino, just now, Wil, we thought because we are going to be banking a lot of these episodes and we want to keep our content evergreen, that maybe we would reach out to you, dear listeners, the teabaggers out there, with something that we're called the Forgotten Project, which is we wanted to ask you guys if there was anything that we've talked about on the show that we didn't finish, or a topic that you wanted us to talk about, that you asked us to talk about,
or that we promised that we were going to get back to. We'll do that another time, and then we never did.
That we never did. So in the preparation for this this journey, I actually uncovered a whole bunch of emails that I was never able to get to, or I'd bookmark because it's like, okay, well, maybe when, because they're a bit longer, the questions, the inquiry is a bit longer. So it's going to be a bit of a balance between, people asking, can you talk about this? And then also, emails from, I found one from
answering email. But this is a great idea. This is, could we get to the point where we have no mail?
Yeah, I think so, including Patreon, you mean? Yeah. No, I think that's that is very possible. Like, I also need to apologize to a bunch of these people whose emails I bookmark. Like, if you wrote in 2 years ago and were like, why are those fucking guys down? Well, I did intend to get to it, but, for whatever reason, we just never did. But it is my intention to reach out to you, and you'll see, Wil, when we get to some of these letters, like some were a little time sensitive.
Okay, sure.
But, I think
help. I need money, please. You're my favorite podcast.
It's the thought that counts. Let's start off, though, with just a few anecdotes that people want us to elaborate on or get to the bottom of. This is off our Instagram. This came from Pretend Yelling. He says, way back in the early days, Wil started a story about something happening in the bathroom in the Qantas lounge. Unfortunately, I don't remember any more details than that as a prompt, so it may be lost forever. Does that ring a bell? Did something happen to you?
It does ring a bell, and I'm not going to continue that story. It was, at the time, I pretty much, I think I moved on for good reason, and I am not going to revisit that good reason. But I do remember the story.
Lost to the annals of history.
Yeah, exactly. And particularly these times with the trouble that Qantas is having. Let's not pile anything more on top of it.
Okay, this is from Marty Nesta, also on Instagram. Was there talk of finding the biggest horse in the world, or did you guys peak at Norway? Yeah, look, I think we did dabble with that idea. Every now and then someone will send me an article linking to somewhere being the biggest horse in the world. I think Elias, our Norwegian friend, who claimed to have the biggest, this horse, well, the horse you can see posted just over there, that's the biggest horse in Norway. He didn't claim it was the biggest horse in the world. He said there's much bigger horses even in like neighboring Scandinavian countries. But I am fascinated by the concept of like big horses now. Like every time someone sends me like a Clydesdale or a real big horse, I'm like, that's a big horse. What's your relationship with horses like?
Well, so at the moment there are 3 horses in the paddock, in fact, just down from where I am. So we've recently just had some neighbours bring their horses into, because our paddock is full of, horse food, and the horses have come down to eat, which is pretty fun. And they're really good horses. They're just like, they are wrapped. They feel like they've been at a, they've just got keys to the world's last sizzler, and it's like everything has to go. Whatever's in this, they're in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, where it's like, If you can see it, you can eat it. Just walk around this paddock and whatever you want to eat, you can actually just chew off a bit. It's all food. And they are absolutely treating it like that at the moment, which is pretty fun.
Iona's just started riding lessons. Jem grew up riding horses. She grew up in the country, obviously.
Yeah.
And we have friends who have horses in the property not too far from here. Firstly, she took to it. Clearly gets it from her mother, because if anyone's ever seen me on a horse, in fact, I was on a horse for a couple of episodes of McLeod's Daughters, and then they very quickly switched me to a motorbike because like, this guy does not look like a jackaroo. He does not look like a natural horseman. And I was on I was on the most rider-friendly, TV trained. Like, these horses have been in the business longer than I have, and even I couldn't make it look convincing. She loves it, but seeing the amount of work that goes into like, it is a full-time job having horses. Like, my friend, she and her daughter are like, they've got 3 horses, 2 ponies, and man, like, the amount of work that goes into it, it's not like just having a pet. It's like having another, like a dependent adult, like a dependent, like, human being living with you, expensive human being.
Well, that's the great thing about having somebody else's horses in your paddock. They do all that stuff. I just get to get up and look at some horses in the morning, which is pretty fun. Now, we might have covered this at the time, but I did a little Googling while we were having that conversation about the world's biggest horse. And I think I do remember perhaps that, or at least it got sent to us at the time, when the world's biggest horse died. So I'm going to go back to this in case, because I think there's at least a couple of, we certainly did not read this page last time if we did talk about it. So I'm on the Guinness World Records page. So Guinness World Records are saddened to hear that the record holder for the tallest horse living has passed away. So firstly, this is already like, do we consider tallest to be the biggest horse? I am not sure. But
so there's tallest and longest, I guess. Is that how the 2 measurements, like from tail to nose and from hoof to head?
Well, hopefully we will get to this. So here's what I'm going to get you to firstly guess is, can you guess the name of the world record holder for the tallest horse living?
Single word name or double barrel or whatever?
So the second name is a guy's name, a particularly popular guy's name in, say, the late 90s, early 2000s. Okay. I really identify this name with.
Yeah.
You'd imagine, in fact, I think one of the characters on Melrose Place had this name.
Right. Yeah.
And then
come on.
The first name is a qualifier. So, and the most obvious qualifier that you can imagine for a story about the biggest horse
is the first name, right?
World. Big, correct. Yeah. Yes, correct. Big something.
Now I'm just googling Melrose Place characters to see. Yeah, Jake, Big Jake, the record holder for the tallest horse living. I honestly could not think of one male character, but then just like it just came in a loop. Jake, Jake, of course.
Big Jake. So this was the news from Facebook, 28th of June, 2021. So a bit out of date, but it is with a heavy heart we share the passing of Big Jake. Big Jake was much more than a world record holder. He was a central part of our family. Well, that's very nice. Okay, so I got
to imagine losing a horse, like having lost a dog and knowing how much that hurt. Like, I imagine losing a horse in terms of like, it goes dog then horse in terms of like your best mates, right?
I know what you mean. So I do think that, yes, it would be absolutely huge. Big Jake resided at Smoky Hollow Farm in Wisconsin, USA. He broke the record for the tallest horse living on 19th of January 2010 and first appeared in the 2011 edition of the World Guinness Record Book. So like, Big Jake had been the biggest horse in the world for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Big Jake, he without shoes, measured
without heels,
20 hands. So, how tall do you think in human? So, what is that? Okay, so what do you think that is?
Like, is it actual? I mean, my hands are much smaller than your hands. So, 20 hands would be. I'm going to say. It's from foot to the top of his head.
Yeah, in centimeters.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say 207 centimeters tall.
Oh, mate, 210 centimeters.
Wow.
That is pretty close. Like,
I was just imagining there was a ruckman standing in front of me. And I was like, what a ruckman? There are generally 200 centimeters, 5 extra on that.
All right. So he was the offspring of 2 average size horses, so you never know.
Fuck a horse, you might get a big one. So that's the message I'm getting. Is that what you're saying?
He wasn't tall for a foal. He wasn't exceptionally big,
right?
But he just kept on going.
Roids, is that what you're saying? It's a HGH, not human growth hormones, horse growth hormones.
Growth hormones. He's on the HGH. No, the horse growth hormones. His large size meant he ate 2 full buckets of grain and a bale of hay per day.
How many chicken nuggets? Sorry, that's a lame time for the podcast. More than 16 chicken nuggets. Okay. In joke.
Ah, man. There you go.
All right. Well, yeah.
I think big joke.
I think that explains why we didn't go more on big horse stories. I think there's not much more to say after Big Jake. Big Jake's passing. Pour one out for Big Jake. Tap a hoof for Big Jake. I don't know how to pronounce. This is someone on Instagram. APNMGE. Did we ever hear the end of how you'd continued the pod if Wil was hiding from assassins? I seem to remember a lot with drop-offs and cassette tapes and bushes. Well, I don't think we did end it because, I mean, there was no conclusion to the story. We were just speculating if Wil had to go into hiding in the hills of the hinterland or near a waterfall, how we would continue doing the show. I guess that sort of dovetails into the show Hunted, because we came up with that hypothetical before we watched the show Hunted. I still haven't seen it, but having now watched that show, do you think our plan of, I think you were going to record on cassette tapes and leave them in an unmarked envelope sent somewhere, that was going to be how we continued the show? Do you think that would work?
Okay, so here's what I studied Hunted. I was so repulsed by that show and the idea of that show and our surveillance society and like the glorification of it, but I also could not stop watching it. And mostly it was within mind, how would I go in this situation? And I've learned a lot, Charlie. Firstly, I've got to make friends in the Sikh community, because when it comes to a game of hide and seek, you need a Sikh on your side, because they are the nicest people and so happy to
mean the religious sect Sikhs, SIKH,
yes,
right?
Sikhs.
Okay, right.
They are honestly the greatest people and very much up for looking after somebody within their own community. So firstly, in this scenario, one of the things I really want to put in place at the moment is friends in the Sikh community. Okay. I know that's like, it seems like a weird one, but I'm just going to try to make some friends in the Sikh community.
Here after the floods in the Northern Rivers, they drove their food truck up here and were handing out food. Right. So it's a good chance you could.
If there is any Sikhs who listen to this podcast, I would love to just can you give me an intro into the community? That is one of my big takeaways from it. The second thing is that you need potential to be able to change your appearance. Like that's something that is a really big thing, because there are so many ways for you to be observed. Like I'd never really thought through disguise as much. I think we've really got to lean into the idea that we've got to be able to have a series of disguises. So like what that means is the most successful people on Hunted, they started with a look that could gradually be changed. So like at the start, I was like, it's weird, this show. There's a lot of people with full beards. Yeah. You know, like on TV, you don't generally see it. Or like it's the Survivor. These guys look like the people at the end of Survivor, not at the start of Survivor. But cunningly, I realized, well, of course, that was because it's harder for you to grow a beard during the time that you're trying to be away. But what you can do is that you can shave a beard during that time. Like, you can shave. I
love the idea of you not realizing that until the competition has started and just sitting in your hiding spot, like furiously trying to sprout a beard.
And we all know how terrible I am at growing a beard. So I've really got to put in a few months beforehand. And then some makeup skills. I think one of the handiest things to have is makeup skills. So the ability to be able to apply makeup, change my appearance in that way is something that I think I really need to develop. So I think that I need to firstly move a whole bunch of clothes, like a wardrobe full of clothes, into the cave. Like previously to this happening, I just need to fill the cave needs to look like a walk-in closet, like a walk-in sort of like
next top model
cave. And yeah, exactly. I've got to have like some mirrors with lights around them, that sort of thing, so I can do my makeup properly, and a whole wardrobe in my cave. I think that's going to be very important so that I can throw people off the scent. We were right about the fact of getting out in the middle of nowhere. Like, the more you stay in the city and stuff, the more chance you are that somebody or something's going to observe you on their like security cameras and those sort of things.
On the show, do they show you how like easy it is to find someone with CCTV and like ATM cameras? And
yeah, of course, the thing they do on the show that they can't do in real life yet, although shows like this, pave the way for it, is immediately access those things. So on this show, if you were a team of people and you walked into a shop, they'd be like, oh, look, there's a security camera in the corner. We're going to access that security camera footage. Now, of course, a Channel 10 TV show can't just ring up a random shop and say, can we have your CCTV camera? And then immediately have it in real time. They would then cheat it for TV, where the camera crew that were following the people around, they'd use that footage clearly to recreate what they potentially could do. So the things that they could do on the show, it would take much longer to access that particular, ATM security camera or whatever it is than it would. So I think we've got a little bit of a buffer, but you essentially need to, the more you can be off the grid. And the thing is, you don't want to camp in the middle of nowhere because, of course, drones, right? If you're in the middle if they suspect you're in the middle of nowhere, the immediate thing they're going to do is send drones. So I think a cave, like I think that we stumbled on in a lot of ways, a cave in sort of like a forested area, somewhere where you can scavenge for your own needs and supplies, access to a water source, relative cover from drones being able to spot you, away from any sort of surveillance, and keeping those things to a minimum. That was a good approach. So I'm going to say we nailed all that aspect of it. I want to film a cave with some different costumes and some makeup equipment. And then in regard to actually recording the podcast itself, this is where things get tricky, because like any sort of electronic communication, that's where you can get intercepted and monitored. So that's where it's hard. So I still think that some sort of blind drop off, or to be honest, meetups, but then you're going to have to throw your tail. So what they did in this show was they'd go through your social media or whatever, and they'd be like, who are their contacts? Who are their primary contacts? We're going to go and surveil the house of this person because they're the most they're in this area. They know this person in this area. They're the most likely person that they're going to contact in this area. So people are going to know that so they're going to be on your tail. So now it's up to your capacity do you think that you would be able to, in your day-to-day life?
No.
Okay.
I was just thinking about that. Is it possible to launder the tape? So just say you have to get a cassette tape to me so I can keep doing the podcast.
Right.
In my head, I'm like, what if we could train a pigeon or an eagle? You have a falcon, you become a falconer, and you train a falcon, and so you record that your end of the podcast, and then you get the falcon. There's a train it to drop it off at a certain point. And then we get a third party who has maybe I contact them anonymously and say, hey, there'll be $100 in your bank account every Wednesday. You just need to drive to this field and pick up this package and then just leave it in this other spot. So we just launder it that way, put another layer in between. So at least if, someone does get tracked or whatever, it doesn't come directly back to me, at least not at first.
Okay. So complicated though to do that training is what I would say. I feel like that's too, if we were going to do a falconer, we might as well just have a drone of our own, right?
Oh, that's a good idea. Let's get a drone.
One of the things they did quite effectively on the show was create a false trail, throw them off the scent. So for example, if I need to get somebody to use, say, my credit card or whatever in a particular town that was 2 hours away, and then 2 days later you make a trip to that particular town, that they think then that the podcast has been recorded in that time. Even though you go inside somewhere, they can't get inside, the podcast comes out, they assume it's happened during that time. But what they don't realize is that when you rode your bike to the gym that day, when you went into the gym, you ducked out the back of the gym into the bushes where I was waiting, and we just sat in the bushes, recorded a podcast. You went back into the gym and then just came out the front all like sweaty and stuff, and they didn't know that we recorded a podcast.
How about we set up a fake live show as like a sort of speed style? So we have to do it early. So we know you've got like 48 hours. So we go into the bushes, we set up cameras and we record a bunch of live podcasts. And then we make an announcement that, we're doing a live TOFOP. And so the people hunting you are like, oh, great. Well, we'll just wait for the signal. And so we use a VPN fake IP address. We play the episode through that VPN, through that IP address. And so they get taken. They think they're going to like, the woods in Tasmania or something like that. That'll work once, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, they're going to be like, well, he's wearing the same T-shirt. They've pre-recorded all of these.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like that gives us, if we pre-recorded a whole bunch of them, that then gives me a couple of like months in the cave, right? To come up with another plan.
Well, let's be honest. Like we pre-recorded 3 because, we get tired. We've got other things we need to do. You've got to get a wardrobe moved into a cave. You've got things to do. So like we pre-recorded 3. So we've got like not months worth.
Well, that's still like 3.5 weeks. I've got 3.5 weeks to come up with another plan.
Your hunters are going to wait a week to see when the second episode comes out before they make some inquiries? I think they would investigate the first one, realize they've been duped, and then they would just recalibrate their attack.
How would you go under questioning? So this is like one of the most important things that I've realized is like a lot of this entire plan depends on your capacity to hold up your end of the story when you've got a bunch of like officials like questioning you hard and like, making threats to. It's
funny. Like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I would have been like, oh, terrible. But I've been watching a lot of leftist, / socialist communist YouTubers lately who are very anti-cop. And, a lot of them will play videos of like ordinary citizens like, this is how you respond to questioning by police, and you don't have to give them this and you don't have to give them that. And I watched this video of a teenager, he was a teenager in somewhere in the States, and he flipped off a cop car that drove past.
Oh, yeah.
And the cop came by and, was harassing him and then called for backup, and they were trying to arrest him. And this kid knew his shit so well, was just like, you can't arrest me. I can fucking flip you off. That's free speech, First Amendment rights. I know what I'm doing. And the cops are like, you're creating a public disturbance. It's like, hang on. I didn't create the public. I was walking along the street. You pulled the car over. This is the disturbance now. What you cops are doing now, this is the disturbance. And the cop's like, well, we're going to arrest you. That for what? Wait, fuck you. It starts and I'm like, oh my God, this kid is amazing. So if I could just summon some of that kind of, that energy of that 17-year-old fucking socialist that I saw on YouTube, then yeah, I could probably do it.
Yes. I mean, that's who you really need. Like on your side in this scenario is like one of those
a cocky teenager,
like, just a cocky teenager who doesn't give a fuck about authority. Who's just like, what are you going to do about it? Fuck you.
He was literally calling this cop a motherfucker to his face. It was amazing.
You can't do it, motherfucker. I know my law. I'm a lawyer. I'm actually like a Doogie. I'm like a Doogie Howser of law. I actually know my shit back to front for this scenario.
Fuck you. I've been practicing flipping on. So yeah, I think I would just watch a bunch of those vids and get all like inspired, and then I'd sit there just being like, "Fuck you." I mean, because who are they? Are they the authorities? Are they a private? If they're authorities, I'd feel a lot safer because I feel like there is some kind of recourse. If it's some shadowy mercenary group, now fuck that. Like I don't want to be buried at the bottom of the field somewhere.
Oh, so immediately me having you involved in this plan has like done me in. Is that what you're saying? Like you immediately go, yeah, he's in a cave. I've got a family. He's in a cave. Definitely in a cave. Check caves. You'll find it.
If it's like they're threatening through the courts.
Look for a cave that's full of clothes. That's him. Yeah. If you find a cave that's got some mirrors.
I mean, are you like with all this stuff that's happening with, the FBI raiding Trump's home and stuff and the files, like,
yes,
I feel like we're all at a point now where like, it's like, well, nothing's going to happen. Like, it doesn't matter. Like they, even if they found like he sold fucking nuclear codes to whoever, like nothing will happen. And
why though? Like, why is that? Like, why are we at a point in the world where we're all just resigned to the fact that it's like
rich people,
this person might have committed these like horrendous crimes, and we're just going to be like, yeah, but nothing's going to happen.
Because I think we've all realized that wealthy, powerful people, there is a different justice system to the rest of us. Like, you're a single mother.
You have been watching a lot of these socialist videos online, haven't you?
Mate, I've been radicalized. But it is. Like, I think we had this kind of naive idea that, there are justices served, but it's like, that's the one thing Trump did if he was controlled by Vladimir Putin, who wanted to expose Western hypocrisy about, democratic countries and the way they're run, well, he's pretty right. Like in the way that Trump early on just demonstrated that he could say and do fucking anything and there would be no repercussions. There'd be a lot of tut-tutting and, he'd be impeached and all that kind of stuff, but no real world consequences. Like his kids could go out and sell the presidency and make $2 billion from Saudi Arabia and all these kind of countries, but there's no actual consequences. And I think that is the same on both sides of the political spectrum. If you are a well-connected, wealthy politician, there's not a lot of consequences.
That's not good though, is it?
No, I don't think so. I think it's really, really bad.
I don't know.
But so I think that I'm not wealthy and well-connected and powerful. So I imagine that they would, and especially if you were the Julian Assange of this scenario where it's like they wanted you for significant political purposes. They needed to make an example of you. Well, they're going to scorch earth. They're going to burn everyone down to get to you.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Do you feel guilty about putting me and your other friends in that position of being like we're in front of the combine harvester?
Hang on. I don't know why I'm on the run, by the way. Like we've never identified exactly why I'm on the run. It could be for good reasons. I might be the WikiLeaks.
Oh, because you and your jokes. You're always making jokes about people, Will. We know what you're like. You and your jokes. You made the joke about the wrong person.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably 100% what has happened, unfortunately. So you're right. Yeah, I do actually think about that. Is like these, if that unfettered power, like, of the idea of like when you're talking to somebody that like, I mean, I've got some jokes in my book. I think my book, yes, by the time people are listening to this, my book has been announced officially. It is called I Am Not Fine, Thanks, and it will be available very soon. But in that book, like there's a whole bunch of stuff about Jeff Bezos and Jeff Bezos going to space and, like my thoughts on that. And I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? Jeff Bezos could absolutely have me killed if he wanted to. I mean, he wouldn't bother because I made a few jokes, but if he was offended enough by those jokes, absolutely he could just have me secretly killed and nobody would. Like, I mean, he has the resources.
How do you think that starts though? Like logically, step me through, like Jeff Bezos, and I'm assuming to this point has had, he's worked, he has not worked with criminals before. Everything he's done has been legal and above board.
It's a generous assumption.
But suddenly something's happened.
You've led with an overly generous assumption, I think. But
well, okay, so what's the first call he makes?
Okay, so here's what happens. So we know this to be true. This is absolutely true, that Amazon won't sponsor any shows where people say negative things about Jeff Bezos. Like, that's something that is just a fact. Like often,
that's not true. They sponsored our show.
I know, but they ask if you like specifically like around, are you saying negative things about Jeff Bezos? So it's like part of what they say. So,
oh really? Is that new?
Maybe it is, but I imagine that there's some sort of like on Amazon, it would be easy enough for them to have an algorithm, right? That anything that goes through Amazon that searches for negative Jeff Bezos references in general, and then anything that's negative. So their first thing would be like, you just like, we're not going to sell their book on Audible or whatever. Like, we're not going to sell it on Amazon. Like, we'll ruin them that way. That would obviously be the best way to do it. But like, let's just say that Jeff is like a real yes, like, surrounded by yes people, right? No one ever says anything negative to Jeff. They all just think he's a genius. And just somehow this has slipped through. And so it hurts him even more than it ordinarily would because he's not really aware that people are, that not everybody thinks it's a great triumph for humanity that he flew his penis into the fucking sky. So he's like, fuck it. You know what? Like, because also he's the richest man in the world. What thrill does he have anymore other than just like, he go, I'm gonna get that.
He wants to hunt the most dangerous guy.
Yeah, exactly. I want to hunt someone, right? Yes. So he's rich. Yeah. He needs a thrill in his life. He wants to hunt someone, and he's identified someone that no one's ever going to put this together, right? Like he's going to be able to get a little like revenge kill out of it, but nobody's ever going to really like if you went after one of his like most direct business enemies, then on the list of suspects, like if I'm suddenly assassinated, like and they're drawing up a list of people who've killed me, like Shannon Knoll's going to be higher on that list than Jeff Bezos is. You know what I mean? Carl Sanderlands. They're going to go through a whole list of other people before Bezos's name even really comes up as a suspect. So it's, I mean, but the point is, it doesn't matter that it's me. In any situation, Jeff Bezos, when he's talking to somebody, like he must not have social anxiety because if he says something dumb to someone at a party, he can just get them murdered.
But I actually want to know practically, like, what's the first call he makes? Like, he's got PAs, right? So
he'd have a guy. He'd have a Mr. Wolf.
So he'd have a security. He'd have a security guy. And like an ex-mercenary black ops kind of dude.
A problem solver.
You think he would?
100% Jeff Bezos has a problem solver.
I guess he's getting extortion attempts and kidnapping attempts and stuff like that happening all the time.
You're the richest person in the world. You don't have a problem solver?
So he would say to that guy, so he'd call that guy in for a private meeting, no surveillance, no microphones or anything. And he would say, look, ordinarily I hire you to protect me and my family, but there has been this guy in Australia who's been making cracks about me and for some reason it's just really got under my skin.
Yeah.
I need you to take care of it. Is that all he has to say?
Yeah. I don't need to know the details, but I think you'd like to know the details. For him, there's a thrill in this, I think. I think he wants to.
He wants to be the one to deliver the killing blow.
And I want to kill him.
Much like me with the magpie. He wants to be the one to deliver. He walks in with a golf club or a tennis racket.
What I will need is a shed in an industrial area and a series of trapeze.
And a tiny little bicycle. All right. I guess that makes sense. Keegs, this is also on Instagram, says, I was scrolling back through your discography and I noticed the redacted blurbs about the fax machine from the fax episode that made me smile. What a great era for the pod. That was a pretty amazing era. There's even like I was actually going to our Patreon page, which you can subscribe to at patreon.com/TOFOP for heaps of bonus content. And I found a video from 2018 when I was imploring people to stop sending faxes to these poor women. Little update. I was actually back in my old neighborhood a couple of weeks ago and I'm not connecting the two, but the news agency is no longer in business.
Out of there.
Gone. I mean, if it turns out that it was a family business, maybe it was stressful living out the back of the shop and, maybe the husband and wife had been arguing over their investment in this news agency and whether it had been a good idea or not. And then it was just one 48-hour period where the fax machine would not stop ringing.
Just broke them.
Broke them. I mean, I feel bad for that. I mean, if that is what happened.
I mean, more realistically, it's the end of people buying physical newspapers and magazines.
Bricks and mortar.
The fact that lottery tickets can now be bought at other places other than newsagents. So I reckon that's probably the case. But maybe it was our fax thing as well.
It was, it was such a heady time. I remember I did investigate that. Like it tickled us so much, the idea of us having a dedicated fax line, but to actually set up a fax line was going to be so complicated, and I didn't want to be giving out personal details. I was renting a desk in an office space. I sort of didn't feel comfortable about like having faxes coming through on their business line, but it was a heady time, and I still have those faxes. Like I actually, if there's ever a Smithsonian for Australian podcasts, then we have like so much stuff. I've got the courtroom sketches from when we did our live show in LA. I've got the faxes that were sent in for our brief stint with the fax machine. Good times. And this show has had, if nothing else, we have had identifiable periods, haven't we?
Well, so on the Little Dum Dum Club at the moment, they're running this thing that they're doing where they've registered Oz Comedy Hall of Fame and they're putting it up as if there's there's going to be a real Australian Comedy Hall of Fame, but it's, genuine people mixed in with like Dickie Knee and ostentatious and like it's a troll. It's a giant Little Dum Dum Club troll and it's fun. It's a fun little arc. They've got a podcasting section where the only Australian podcast in it is Little Dum Dum Club and the rest are like Joe Rogan and WTF with Mark Maron and stuff like that. But how about, because what one of these things always needs is a rival, right? This is when it actually starts, right?
Beef.
You need a beef between the two saying we're the original. So what if we don't go with like Comedy Hall of Fame, but we just independently try to start, because like the podcasting section is like an afterthought for them. So we just like, no, we'll grab so we start like a physical, like the one in Cleveland. Have you ever been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland? I've been several times.
No. So I shook my head and then realised that anyone listening could
audio
not.
Medium. So I used to play Cleveland a lot when I was living in America. I used to play the comedy club there, which is hilarities, and it's fucking great. They were so supportive of me, and I really love my time in Cleveland. But one of the not always like a heap of things to do in Cleveland, and they do have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I would quite regularly go down and they would have like an update. Someone had been inducted, or they were like featuring a particular, I remember they were doing a big Rolling Stones like floor at one stage, like one year when I went through there, but it was great. So what if we, same size, same scale. So we need an angel investor. We need somebody who is like really is there anyone who's done really well out of Australian podcasting? Hamish and Andy. I guess we need Hamish and Andy, or like who are the real success stories of Australia? Howie?
Well, Weekly Planet would be one of the biggest.
We do actually have these connections. So we need to get the Weekly Planet and Howie from the Howie Games, Abby Chatfield and Hamish and Andy in a room.
Abby Chatfield.
And say, we want to put together the Australian Podcasting Hall of Fame. But like physically, like as in like, proper. Yeah.
Can we call it the TOFOP?
TOFOP presents the Australian Podcasting Hall of
Fame. TOFOP's Australian Podcasting Hall of Fame.
Okay, what about the TOFOP Hall of Fame?
In brackets, presented by TOFOP.
Okay, maybe I am thinking too big. Maybe we've gone too far to include other podcasts. Who really gives a shit about that? We need our own Podcasting Hall of Fame that only has TOFOP-related podcasts. So it's got TOFOP. There's a TOFOP exhibition. There's a FOFOP. And there's heaps of guests from FOFOP. There's a FOFOP exhibition. Yeah. There's a Philosophy exhibition. There's a That's Awesome
2 Guys, 1 Cup
exhibition. There's a 2 Guys, 1 Cup exhibition. There's like a dad pod. I'm happy to have a dad pod in there. I'm happy to have any other podcast that we've featured on can have like a little segment of like little dum-dums there, or like, whatever, because we've guested on one of those programs. So like they can be like part of it, but it's just like a little sideshow. That's better. Let's do that.
Is it motion activated, like the Bowie exhibition 100%. Where you step into a certain spot and then just like a clip from the show?
I think it's good too, because I mean, we're 12 years in now, right? We can have us from different eras. Yeah. Like, you got the early days, you got the different setups, you got the microphones pointed in the wrong direction. You can like actually, sit in, like, it's maybe like interactive, like Kesticon, like I like the idea that you can actually sit down and feel like you're actually doing a podcast.
I like the idea of like, it's sort of more like the Glen Rowan Hotel as opposed to like the Tupac hologram. So it's like mannequins in like, we donate some of our old clothes. And so it's just like a couple mannequins sitting in front of like a desk that we recreate my old front room from my place in Randwick. And we just like have like a creaky card table and stuff, and like that old system we used to work on.
Oh my God, that's that original hoodie that Will wore for 95 episodes of the show.
Oh look, that's when Charlie said the Avengers film will never make any money. We've got a question here from host of Confessions of the Idiot, Sam Peterson, who's a big fan of the show.
Speaking of, he can also have it, Sam Peterson, because we've both done Confession of the Idiot,
and he's
Confessions of the Idiot.
He's an upcoming guest on FOFOP as well. He wants to know, when are we going to release our doco about Jay from Five? So that's a recent topic of conversation where we talked about going to Wales, to his little town where we've identified he lives in Wales, and searching for Jay. Now, part of me thinks, like, this is content I would watch. This is perfect YouTuber kind of content. This would go fit snugly on our channel, and I think it would be great if, we somehow could raise money to buy a couple of airfares, business return, and fly to Wales, and we look for Jay. But then part of me is like, I mean, what if we discover Jay and it's not funny? Like, what if, not that his life's in a bad way, but like he has deliberately avoided the limelight.
It's just like, what are you guys doing? You literally know that I stepped away from this. Like, I don't want to be the focus of attention anymore.
I don't want to be your part of your in-joke. Like we're sort of, we are reducing him to a punchline in our stupid little, must admit, Hall of Fame admitted podcast, but still, our stupid little podcast.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what if he just like he finds out we're in town and he asks for a sit down without like recording equipment, and he goes, "Hey guys, I'm not even saying this isn't fun or funny. I get it. I'm a guy your age. I get like how this could be like an interesting thing, a funny thing, but like I was famous and it wasn't good for me and it wasn't good for my like family and friends. And if I wanted to be in the public eye, I could be. I could step back into the public eye anytime and appear on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or like any of these shows. Like, I'm Jay from Five, man. Like I could join those other three remaining members of Five and get back on the road with them. Like if I wanted this in my life, there are ways I could have this in my life. And what you're doing is cruel. It's actually, to be honest, it's really cruel. You've taken something that I've intentionally stepped away from and you've tried to drag me back into it for your gratification, for the gratification of your listeners. Am I a joke to you? Is that what I am? Do you look at me and do you think I'm a joke? Do I amuse you? Am I the subject of your
So Jay, let me just get
amusement?
This straight. Are you saying by bringing up your history with the boy band Five, would you say that Five is making you get down?
No. Jay's like, I am not okay. I was okay until you guys arrived, and now I am not okay.
I mean, I think I would listen to that and I would be very like receptive to that. But part of me would be like, Jay, this is done out of affection. Like, consider the strength of your charisma. Like, you only were famous for 3 or 4 years in a band that, respectfully, fits somewhere in the pop oeuvre, but is not nearly as big as some of your contemporaries.
Okay.
You, sir, have captured not just my imagination but my heart. I have memorized your raps. If you'd indulge me, Jay.
Oh, no. You get a rap in front of him? Yes. Okay. I'm back. Sorry, I'm back now.
I'll be your resident.
If this is what happens, if Jay says, could you please not do that? And then you sit across the table and say, but Jay, will it help if just give me a beat? Just give me a beat.
I'll be the resident president. I'm the Fifth Element. Jimmy Fly, Snooker, Stone Cold's how I'm hitting them. Better get together, put your hands in the sky. Stick 'em up, punk, hit 'em low, hit 'em high. Now I'm the bad boy that you invite for dinners. Ain't got no manners because I eat with my fingers. Lock boys terrorize the neighborhood, and hounds of the Baskervilles be up to no good. So come on, everybody keep checking us. Come on with the funk, bring it on, wickedness. Do you think he gets up and leaves, or just a single tear?
Left halfway through, back down to the room, halfway through, you're still rapping louder so they can hear. Who's that great actor, that British actor, Michael Sheen? Did you see the clip of him that went viral a couple of weeks ago now when we recorded?
No.
But so he's Welsh, I believe, and it's like a kind of a speech it does a bit of a speech on behalf of Wales, and it's like, a bit of a call to arm for Welsh sovereignty. And I must admit that it's super inspiring. If people haven't seen it, they probably have seen it by now. It went viral, but it's well worth checking out. But I'm engaged in Wales. What I've noticed is since this Jay storyline and understanding that he's now in Wales and there is this town that has this like book festival, I must admit that
rich
now anything
history.
Welsh comes up, my curiosity is piqued a little. Like I lean in and listen a little harder. And I think that I've been captured by Wales and the idea of going to Wales. So I'm not ruling out the idea of us taking this journey, is what I'm saying.
I mean, what a time to be England right now. Like, you market yourself as Great Britain. We are an alliance of three of these like powerful countries. Like Scotland had an independence referendum only 6 years ago and lost by a whisker. Part of the reason they lost is they were promised that they would stay in the EU if you remained in Great Britain. So now Scotland's looking at its options. You got Wales claiming independence. Look at the way Ireland reacted to the death of the Queen. Like, I think if you were like had any old-fashioned ideas about like the power of the realm right now, it's going to be pretty shaky. Like, what are you offering us, England? Like, why should we say? If anything, like you are a hindrance to us moving forward.
It is the power of the Queen, regardless of like. Yeah, I mean, we're a couple of weeks away from it now, and it's like whatever. Like everyone had a million opinions, and you can check the internet for all those opinions. But I think the greatest power of the Queen is that the minute she died, I think now you just see how ridiculous having a bloody king is. Like in this day and age, it was kind of because we'd had the Queen for so long and she'd always been part of it. You were like, okay, well, we're still doing this because she was a queen from the time when countries had queens and that was a thing, and she's still like alive and being the Queen, so that's fine. But the idea of like swearing in a new king in this day and age, and that our country, I mean, it's incredible that that our country technically still, like, he's the king of Australia. It feels so ridiculous. It feels like, yeah.
And what's even crazier is that I've been watching, as well as being radicalized by leftist socialist YouTube, I've been also dipping into a lot of like right-wing YouTube.
I am.
And the amount of right-wing Americans who were tearfully kind of eulogizing Queen Elizabeth, it's like, hang on. Isn't America a country that waged a bloody war of independence?
Yeah, you left
against England.
You left literally because you did not want this involved in your shit.
Because of a monarchy. And now you're like, she was a beautiful woman who epitomized I think a lot of it is all about like she was the epitome of white supremacy and colonialism, which they really dig, like on the right. But it's fucking nuts that it's like this country that's proudly like independent. Don't tread on me is like, we missed the Queen.
Yeah, anyway, the discourse around her death, it is complicated, of course, because I think that, what people admire about the Queen was like that she, even if her role is a ridiculous role that is completely outdated, that she did it well, right? She served well. She served with like grace and whatever. But then you read, like, obviously from people who were, victims of colonization and the history of you start to read genuinely good and intelligent rebuffs of both that position and even her role, like Elizabeth's role in that position. I think they're all very valid, right? Yeah. Like they're valid things to say.
Yeah, advising Lady Di not to support HIV research because it was a bad look for the royal family. Probably not great.
Yeah, there's shit that she did like wrong that people can be angry about. The idea that those two things, this is where we are in the world, right? Is that the idea that absolutely all those things are true. Like you can, feel sorry for an old lady who died. You can see like a lot of positives she did. You can pick out negative things she did. You can talk about like what the role of royalty is, whether it's a tourist attraction or a fucking actual thing. Like, you have discussions around sovereignty of nations and how outdated it is this idea that in Australia, they're like, oh, well, we're going to have to put Charles on the money now. How about we just don't put a fucking a royal from another country on our fucking money? How about that? Like, can we just whack another echidna on or something instead? Like, I think that's
Aussie ostrich, right? Put Aussie ostrich on. Didn't he die? The guy did Aussie ostrich,
right? But I mean, it seems ridiculous to me now that we're like it's not. They're not our royal family. Like, it's so ridiculous in relation to Australia that we pretend that they have any association with Australia.
And we've broken our own rule about not discussing anything topical. But look, we're 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
We're 2 weeks out.
Well, I mean, the Queen will still be in the news. Like, they'll just be putting her in the ground. They'll just be playing comedy on the BBC again. It's okay to laugh, guys.
That is TOFOP for this week. We said go to patreon.com/TOFOP if you want to support the show. Check out all our great bonus content. Don't forget, clips from the shows go up on our YouTube page, TOFOP TV on YouTube, and you can go to tofop.com to find out more about those shows. Two Guys, One Cup, final episode coming up. I should also plug the grand final live show is coming up this Sunday, the 25th, 4 p.m. at the European Beer Cafe. Will won't be able to make it, but he'll be dialing in. It'll be me, Adam Rosenbach, Michael Chamberlain, live on stage with some special guests. So if you want to come down and see some live comedy, you should do that. One other thing I need to plug, Will, what is it? I can't remember. Oh, we want to let people. Dad Pod, yes, new episodes of Dad Pod out every Thursday. But no, what I was going to say is if you want to submit more ideas for the Forgotten Project, you can.
Oh, yes.
Just hit us up on social media, DM us or go to the website and send us a message via hello@tofop.com. But for now, I'm Charlie Clausen.
Oh, well, Anderson.
Everyone relax.
This podcast is a TOFOP production.
Head to tofop.com for more.
Cool things for cool people.